It's Georgia here for the Flow of Life community, and I have the lovely Mark Howard with me today, who I know you used to be, or maybe you still are, of course you still are, but I don't know that you use it as such anymore, a psychologist.
Oh, yes. I worked as a psychologist for about 30 years. And, but even then, I wasn't really what people think of as a psychologist. But now I've moved into mentoring and the coaching world, and really do not work under that kind of label.
Well, it's interesting when you say you didn't work under the label of a psychologist. Was it? Okay. So I guess the question is, was it because you saw something else even before you knew what you saw?
Well, that's it. If you look at psychologists in practice, a lot of it is focused on traditional approaches to helping people make change. A lot of it these days, at least in North America, is what's called cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's diagnosing and so forth. Now, I had to do some of that, but not, in an organization, they require some kind of categorization. Mm-hmm. But the minute I had an insight from being with Sydney Banks, I realized I could not do that work like that any longer. And professionally, I'm a psychologist, but the work I do is beyond psychologist. It's even beyond coach. It's really an understanding that, you want to convey to people and share with people and help them find it for themselves. But it really shifted the minute I realized a little bit of what Sydney Banks was sharing with us, and it changed my whole way of working with people.
And of course, once you start that way, you can't imagine going back.
Well, there's no way, once you see something that is true about, how we are as human beings, what we are a part of, what life is like. Once you see that at a level of like true for you, there's no way going back. It's hard to not just look to understand more rather than look at old ideas or ideas that really are at another level of understanding. Yeah, so the minute I saw this, I knew it wasn't even a question. I knew I just could not do anything that, is traditionally used by a psychologist in helping people.
And yes, I would imagine there are psychologists that still, even though they have this understanding, maybe still practice in a standard psychology, because I guess if you can still get to people no matter how that is in the setting, then that's okay too, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. There are psychologists that have come on to this understanding, and they're practicing as psychologists, but again, it's what they're sharing is really different than what psychologists usually do. But they're still practicing as psychologists. I just saw that this understanding and kind of carries you beyond a label of how you practice. So I know, like in mentoring a lot of coaches that want to work from this understanding, they talk about going to schools that say you've got to ask a list. You have to ask people this formal list of questions, or, there are sort of kinds of formalities you have to do as a so-called coach. But with this understanding, you're really working beyond ideas, about you're not thinking about coaching strategies or psychotherapy strategies.
Mm.
So that's all I was trying to say by that. But there are people, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean that. Yeah.
No, I'm good. No, I'm good. I just want to clarify, and your questions are helping me clarify what I really mean. And so there are people that are in the field as psychologists working from this understanding, and they have a psychology practice. Yeah.
I mean, I know because Sid talks about, when he had his insight that he knew he had to go to psychologists, that was, mm-hmm. if they could fundamentally understand that you are not your psychology, that you are something so much bigger and more profound than that. The fact that, in a society, I guess, where we go by labels of profession, if they got it, the difference, the way it could spread is just exponential in getting into a commercial market, for lack of a better description. I can't think of another word at the moment.
Well, that's true. When Sid had his enlightenment, he thought, I have to find people that can share this. I can't share this to the world. He actually went to 2 ministers on Salt Spring Island and started to explain this to them, and they would have nothing to do with it. And then he realized, psychologists and psychiatrists, all of the mental health professionals, that would be the way to go, because he saw the answer to mental health. Mm-hmm. And so he thought, these are the people that will get it out. And of course, he didn't know what psychologists or psychiatrists were doing at that time, but he just saw that's the profession where people who are suffering come to. Yeah. And what a great thing if they could, begin to practice with this understanding and move people to mental health. That's why he chose that. That's what it looked like to him. But he also said at one time, I could have gone anywhere. It's the same everywhere in theology, in physics. But he just saw at the time that people suffering in mental health, psychologists and psychiatrists, social workers are deemed to be of help to that population, to the world, really.
And what you say now that obviously you work with a lot of coaches, are these all 3P coaches, or do you have people that are searching and that find you who are non-3P already?
It's the full range, Georgia. There are people who are at high levels of coaching and just want to deepen more of their understanding of the principles, and maybe look to explore with me ways to maybe be impactful and more impactful in sharing that. And there are people that are just becoming interested in the principles or in Sydney Banks' teaching, come across my name, and then see how we might be able to work together where they could move in the direction of a coaching practice that comes from the principles. Again, the main thing is, so let me just give you an example of maybe where my direction is for people in a very gentle, understanding way, particularly when people are transitioning to the principles. A few years ago, I was asked to see if I could help out in an inpatient psychiatry unit. And the only thing they practiced, the whole campus practice, was cognitive behavioral therapy. You could not do anything other than that. Now they gave me freedom to practice any way I wanted, but that was the choice of therapy, you see. And so what I'm wanting to help coaches see that there's an understanding to convey that goes beyond the focus of a lot of these approaches. And a lot of the approaches are trying to administer to the form of the principles, people's thinking or people's emotions, which are all a creation from the principles. So I want coaches, coaches that come in who want to move in the direction of the principles to begin to really gain a level of understanding that they're really speaking to these spiritual principles, that they are the ones that create all of the forms that most coaching or psychotherapy or mental health counseling focuses on. So that's really the principle there, is helping people who are wanting to share this see that they're really wanting to point people beyond their thinking, beyond their personal thinking, their habits of thinking, to what are they? What are they really a part of that allows them moment to moment to create this, to create an experience, or you might say a reality that they're living in totally. What really are they that is creating feelings or biochemistry or whatever, you see? And so that in a nutshell is really the piece, is helping people who come to me really get an understanding of these principles to the point where they find their own way to be with people and find ways to point them to something greater than their personal thinking, greater than having to work on their personal thinking, change their personal thinking. It's really people gaining an understanding, an insight for themselves. And when they do, they come up with their own ways to handle their feelings and their thinking.
But it's interesting because I don't know if you know a writing teacher called Jules Swales.
I'm not sure I do.
She's in this community and she's a beautifully awesome teacher, and I've worked with her for a year.
Yes.
But we're doing something at the moment called Muses. So Carl Jung talked about them as, of course, archetypes. These, which I guess is really thought streams that we tap into, or part of us. I honestly don't know on that one, way beyond my pay grade. And I was talking, one of the pieces that I wrote was about what I call the monster inside, this imagined thing. It will say it looked very real. This sort of monster that sat inside me, the one that kind of we think is the not nice part of us that we try to hide, that we're kind of worried that somebody else is going to see and judge us for, that looked really real. And I had a discussion with her today. And then I fell asleep, literally with my face on my writing book. I had a wonderful crease down the side of my face. And I woke up and I just saw, which I hadn't seen until that moment, the fact that it wasn't real. Mm-hmm. That it was nothing more than a thought. It was nothing more than the energy of thought. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, it was fascinating to go, oh my gosh, I've spent decades believing this was real. And looking at the content of what it was, rather than going, okay, what's behind this? And so even though, in so many other areas, I go, oh yeah, no, I've seen it there, I've seen it there, I've seen it there. It is amazing how when you're on this journey, you kind of think you've got it until you go, oh my gosh, I didn't see thought there.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything just does such a huge fundamental shift.
Yes.
And it's so beautiful because it's so untimed by us.
Yes.
The unexpectedness of just not knowing what we'll see when we see it.
Mm-hmm.
When you kind of get okay with that, is just amazing.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's awesome. It's a sense of wonder and hope. It's a sense of hope for me through the years that not only myself, but everyone I'm of service to can have an experience like that, where they, Sid would say, had a rise in their level of consciousness. All of a sudden, they had a realization that took them, that allowed them to transcend their usual ways of thinking, their usual ways of looking at themselves, and really see closer to the truth of the matter. That, he would say to us, everything is thought. So I think that is so hopeful about the principle's understanding, is that there's unending levels of consciousness to evolve to. And again, it's not up to us. We can't force it, but what is amazing is that it can present itself to us. And that when that happens, we just really see life with more understanding, and all of the results of that habitual thinking fall away.
Yeah.
And so the experience you had is really available to all human beings. And, it's possible in life to continue to evolve your consciousness. And it's not by, like he would always say, you don't have to go to another country and meditate to evolve your consciousness, although you could. But you just want to see, like you did, that all of a sudden it's surprising that you now see yourself beyond, maybe an insecure or a habitual way you were thinking about how you work, to a more true way around how you are able to experience life.
Well, of course, behind that wall of thought of my monster was me. Was the expansiveness of this human experience. Was the possibilities that lay there, that with that wall of, I guess, whether you call it egoic thinking, whatever, keeping us where we are, where I was, all of a sudden, possibility, curiosity, expansion lies. And that is, yes, as you say, just sitting, waiting for some celestial time to appear. But isn't that just so beautiful?
It is. It's, that was what, again, the power of what you described, the power of that realization is really what moved me. The first evening I listened to Sid, I had the same type of realization about feelings. And it moved me to another, you could say, well, I'm going to keep with level of consciousness, another understanding, but really how we really work, what's really true about our nature and beyond. And so once again, like when you see that you're now living in another world and you could see possibility, potential, and a lot for me was hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is you, but not the personal you.
Yes.
You
Yes.
see, yeah, and that's always been fascinating to me because I just sit in the feeling for the fact that I really am the spiritual energy. I really am the principles every moment, and how I use them gives me my moment to moment experience. But I'm more than, see, that's the other beautiful thing is I'm more than Mark Howard. And of course, our intellectual mind can't really grasp that, but you can get a feeling that you are more than that. And Sid always says, basically, it's pure love. And not personal love, pure love.
Yeah.
Or contentment. But yeah, it is us. We are that. But not in a personal sense.
Yes. No. I mean, I guess that's when I say it was me.
Yeah.
It was, as you say, not this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet it came through this, in order to experience it.
And it's interesting when, we slate the ego. No, you don't want your ego, but that's how we're experiencing this tactile feeling, emotional experience that I guess the universal intelligence is using that as a tool to learn and expand. So if we didn't have it, maybe it would be like having no salt and sugar.
Well, yeah, let's see. Two things. One, when Sid talked about ego, he didn't use it as Freud described it. He used it to tell us it was just a sense of self-importance, that we are something. Yeah. And he helped us with, now you never get you can't get rid of your ego. That in a sense, in my words now, not Sid's words, that's you. That's your thinking. It's your consciousness, so you're here physically. And so you can't get rid of your ego, but you can recognize when you're in that type of thinking. He always, and I just sit with this in reflection. He always equated ego with insecure thinking. Because it's a sense of self-importance, you're thinking about yourself. So your thinking is making comparisons, or you're thinking with envy or righteousness. You see, he would equate ego with those types of ways of thinking, because when you move beyond that type of thinking, you're in pure love. You're in love and understanding. And for him, that was our essence. So that's how I hear him. So ego for him was just your sense of self-importance, your sense of you being some kind of important being or special being, rather than just part of this energy that all of us are the same. And so he wasn't looking at ego as the instrument that Sid talked about, the planning, the kinds of cognitive abilities, as well as many other things that Freud ascribed it to. He talked about it just simply as being the sense of our self-importance. And the minute you lose that, you're impersonal. You're beyond thinking about yourself. So you feel the feelings you found. You feel connected. You feel close to people. You see that you're the same. You are able to see people with understanding and find forgiveness. And there's many things that happen, but it really moves you from the personal, the sense of self-importance, thinking about yourself, to the impersonal, which is what contains all the wisdom of the world, all the guidance we need to move toward being happy. So that's how Sid used it. And so the thing is, the beauty, I think, of this understanding is you don't get rid of thinking. You don't get rid of ego, yourself. You recognize, you're able to see what you're up to. And it isn't like you're practicing, continuing to monitor yourself. Once you touch something as a realization, just like you shared with us, that comes back to you. It occurs to you. Oh my God, I'm caught up in my ego, just to use that term. So you don't get rid of, you just know what you're doing. When you know what you're doing, Sid says you get freedom of thought, freedom to think other than that. So for example, if I get bothered by my wife, I'm in that reality until it occurs to me, Mark, your thinking just went south. Oh, okay, quiet down, get back to the feeling. So I get kind of directions. I hope that all makes sense because...
Yeah, totally. And it's really interesting because I think so often, I know not when I first came into this understanding, when I first came into it, it was just this huge, expansive space of love. And then kind of for me, as I explored on, and it's quite interesting to go between, non-duality and all of these things that come in where there's kind of this, for me, an unsure ground of actually, if I don't exist, what's this? And that was a quite an unsettling time of okay, so I can't, none of this is true, but then learning to really sense the difference between inspirational ideas, that life living you energy, and knowing actually that's what you are, but it's just going to come through in this flavor. I don't have to lose this flavor. This flavor is absolutely okay.
Well, yes. I love what you're saying. There's a lot in what you just shared, but no, even if you wanted to, you can't you won't lose your flavor. Otherwise you wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
You would just be spiritual energy. And so what you move to is, rather than have insecurity about your flavor, you move to being grateful for the form you are and your particular human condition. You don't see yourself as a problem, but again, now we're talking beyond, we're talking more in trying to understand spiritual energy right now, and so we have to be careful and have the humility to know that we really don't understand it. We're just getting our own glimpses of it and trying to put words into it. But yeah, you can't lose yourself, and you don't want to. You're the vehicle to come here into the world and enjoy it, and let the energy that we're calling mind guide you through. Let that intelligence of the universe that you're a part of, that we call creation. When people touch it, they call it creative, or like when you touched it, you had the expanse of love, just love. And that's it again. But, coming into form, when we're in that state, we usually create. We're wanting to give. We're wanting to express. But you can't lose this form, and you don't want to. You're perfect right now. and and you just want to kind of let yourself be guided by more than your insecure thinking.
Yeah.
That's it, and so Sid pointed the way, and that was really beautiful, and it helped a lot of people, and me included. The other piece is when you're in that pure love, it expresses itself. It's expressing itself. And so it comes in it has to come in for you as thought. You must have thought to know that what you're in, and it'll give you something at a higher level of consciousness. So I played music. I didn't know this at the time.
Yeah.
I was in high school and college, and I played in bands, and there were moments that, a lot of people talk about flow. It was just that I lost myself through the music, and I could just see so much about where to go, what to create. I just started creating, and I was connected at this level to all of my bandmates. I knew where they were going. So in essence, but I didn't lose myself because I kept playing music, I was still there making music, you see, and it was flowing through me. You see that I'm the vehicle for that. I'm here on earth to, Sid said it very simply, to just move in the direction of joy and happiness, contentment. And in that you're creative. Now you're always creating. Again, mind, the principle's always manifesting through you moment to moment. So you're always creating a life experience. We're talking a little deeper that when you touch something that is there beyond your personal thinking or habitual thinking, you can create many different positive things. You could sculpt, you could paint, you could create a business. There's someone who publishes Sid Banks books, who was 17 when he met Sid and hung out with Sid on Salt Spring Island and was a friend of Sid's for as long as Sid was alive. And he was 17 years old, and he's created 10 businesses. So there's nothing to stop us once that's touched. Now, on a more simple level, when you look away from ego, insecure thinking, when you get that sense you got of realization, you can create love in your life. You can see how to be with the people you love. You can see how you may be acting in a way that doesn't really serve them. You see all these things in a very simple way, not just the grand creations you could make, you see?
Yeah.
And so you can see your way to living in a more, in a life that's creating more love and understanding and connectedness.
Again, I mean, the theme through all of that is creation.
Yes.
Creating different relationships, creating music, creating businesses. It's all exactly the same thing. It appears that is all we're here for.
Yes, it's all of that in a different form.
Yeah.
See, it's the same spiritual energy, intelligence that we are all part of. And it comes through us our way. So it's the same energy manifesting in a different form. And it's not mystical or anything about that. It just means that you'll create in the moment. So in the moment, you may see to create getting closer to someone. You may see a way to create forgiveness. In another moment, you'll see maybe something to create in music. So it's all that same formless energy we are a part of that allows us to bring to life something in form.
Well, I had a podcast with Steve Chandler last week, and it was really interesting because, of course, his coach is Steve Hardison, and he shared that his profound experience with Steve Hardison was the fact he goes with a problem, and Steve goes, "We're not talking about that. What do you want to create?" He said, and Steve said, I go, but there's this, and that. No. What do you want to create? And of course, that is so simple, because if we're just looking at creating, that's clean.
Mm-hmm.
And full of, I love that word, possibility.
Yes.
And yet it's so fascinating that we go, oh, well, I've got this problem first.
Yeah. Well, again, that's just so beautiful. There's so much to talk about with you here, but that's what I help coaches and mental health professionals and all health professionals, including physicians that I've worked with, is that people come with the problem, but you want to see beyond.
Yeah.
You want to see what's there. And it's really surprising, even physicians who have like 15 minutes with a patient, when they talk beyond, when they listen for beyond and try to speak there's a new way to look at the problem. It's not a problem. It's they find something together. So I talk with coaches and health professionals to people come in with problems, but what really is valuable is to help human beings see where that comes from. So you see, when people realize where that comes from, they're free to think anything they want to do, anything they want to be. Now, pointing people to what you want to create, that's beautiful. And it really gets people, in my words, I don't know what Steve Hardison what he had seen, but in my words, it moves people away from their personal thinking back to the source, the essence, and helps people settle down and look there and keep people looking there. Well, I also share with coaches, that's where you want to keep pointing people. You want to keep helping people see, wait a second, there's something here you're a part of that you're using in a way that's creating this. Not in judgment, but a way to see this, and that you can create so much more. So I used to see couples a lot, and when they came in to see me, they were all about how I want you to fix my husband. I want you to fix my wife. I want you to fix my partner. Here's what's wrong with them. And I say, no, we're not going to talk in that level, because the love you're looking for is right here now, were it not for the way you're thinking. And so I really started to want to point people to the fact that they can find the feelings they're looking for, and our words today, that energy beyond their way that they've been thinking about life, or the way they've been thinking about another human being. And so I love that Steve Hardison pointing people to that. Look, you are something greater than these problems that you're thinking about. And let's look there. Let's look there.
So simple. And yet, it's the last place we look, isn't
it? Isn't that something, Isn't that? Well, I talk to people a lot about, there was a movie out called The Gremlins, I think it was like the 80s, and they
Oh,
were
I
these
love
little
that.
things.
The little,
Yeah,
oh, yeah, they were
yeah, yeah,
fabulous.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. And I said, well, I guess one of the reasons we don't see that is we've let the gremlins rent space in our minds,
Yeah.
and,
And
when
when
they
it
knock,
rains,
yeah.
yeah, they turn
and
absolutely horrible.
and when they knock on the door, we just let them in.
Yeah.
So I tell people we want to gain an understanding, so we can see them turning the corner to come down to our house, so we can lock the doors.
They say, don't open the door after midnight. If only we all learnt that. That's a madness, isn't it? Isn't this a whole human experience? So beautifully, simply complex, but in essence, so beautifully simple.
Yeah. When you get a feeling like that, that you see that it's simple, it tells you really seen something. Sid always said, it's so simple. Well, we're saying, well, tell us, what's consciousness? Come on, what's mind? He said, no, it's just so simple. And we're thinking, it can't be, And then again, when you get kind of a light goes off, you see it's much more simple than we have made it up to be. We're the ones making life complicated, complex, difficult. You can hear that all the time. I got to work at my marriage. Oh man, life's been difficult through the pandemic. You just hear how we've grown up innocently at a level of thinking that makes it look like it's very complicated to find happiness or so forth, and yet it's very simple. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're designed with these to look outwards. So that looks real.
Well, it's like what you're saying. That's true. And it's the innocence of it.
Yeah.
But you just have to see the innocence of what happens when we're born. When we're born, we look out and we're taught ways of using thinking.
Yeah.
And we don't know that yet. It's like you're saying, we're not born into yet a world of consciousness that is really looking within the minute we're born rather than without, so to speak.
The interesting thing is babies when they first arrive, do not have great vision. They don't see colour for a while. So actually, when they first arrive, it is all about their internal experience. And
Definitely. So, I have a grandson who's now 2 years and maybe 5 months.
Oh, beautiful.
He's been love since he's born. He's been love and full of creation. And just as we talk about as we get more socialized, he is more present. If he wants to run around the house, he's running around the house. If he wants to sit and watch a cartoon, he sits and watches a cartoon. If he wants to look at some story or book, he's doing that. But he's still pure. You could still feel love.
Yeah.
Love, non-judgmental, creative. He's creating. And, I watched it in terms of his physical evolution and the intelligence that guides him. So you see him all of a sudden trying to crawl. Out of nowhere, he's trying to crawl. And like he didn't think that. It just guided him, right? And we have the same intelligence guiding us to a life of happiness and love. If we can just be careful about thinking so much about ourselves. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mark. This has been beautiful.
Oh, Georgia, I didn't know that we would get to such a beautiful space today when I clicked onto Zoom. This has been beautiful. Thank you for the invitation and your beautiful wisdom and feeling.
Thank you. Thank you for blessing me with your presence. Now I know why, when I said to you that quietness between you and George, it isn't just between you and George, because it's here, it's just you.
It was with us too. Yeah, thank you so much for those kind words.
Thank
Well,
you.
it's been great to be with you. I hope this was helpful to contribute.
And you've triggered little things in me that are going, okay, yes.
Oh, great.
Thank you. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Okay, you have a beautiful rest of your evening.
I will do,
okay,
yes.
George.
Rest of the day.
Okay, bye.
Bye.